Welcome back, everyone, to Inside the Diamonds podcast. This is our third episode. I'm your host, JC, and I'm joined with CJ tonight. How you doing, CJ?
I'm fantastic now. I got this fresh haircut. Can't be looking like
Yeah,
a
I'm gonna
bum
need
anymore
one.
doing a podcast.
Yeah, I need one, but we'll do that when the time comes. So, last week's episode, we went through the National League, all three divisions. We're going to do the same tonight with the American League. Before we get started, just quickly, as it's Monday night, March 25th, and everyone else in the baseball world's wondering what's going on. I just wanted to get your quick thoughts on Ohtani and the gambling before we dive into the projections.
Yeah, this story is wild. I mean, I don't know what to believe right now.
It's a little bit wishy-washy, and I think that it's the timing of it is piss poor. They just got back from Seoul. He just signed a huge contract, and nothing is matching up. So I'll be very interested. It'd be a little too early to speculate right now for us to go in and talk about it. We know exactly what everyone else knows, that there's money missing. He's standing up for his interpreter, which he does speak English. Ohtani does right now, so it's a little bit wishy-washy in regards to what we're hearing. As soon as more details come out, we can cover that in a future pod. I think would be best for us now. Otherwise, all we're going to do is spit shit right now, and none of it is really anything that we know about.
Yeah,
All right. With that said, I figured last time we started with the NL East, why don't we start with the American League West? I did get your projections ahead of time, and when I wrote those down next to mine, without really looking at mine, the West is the one division where we matched up 100%. So
okay.
this division shouldn't take too much time, but why don't we go with who you had finishing last? I'll do fourth, and then we'll go up and down and just kind of quickly go through the West.
Sounds good. I'm actually surprised that's the one division that we had the same. When you said that to me
Yep.
earlier, I thought it was going to be like the East or something. I really didn't have the West.
Now we're
So my
pretty off on the other ones.
well, that's interesting. We're gonna have some good topics to talk about then. So I have in fifth place in the AL West the Oakland Athletics, and I mean, what do you say? The team really is just a dumpster fire right now. I mean, they don't even know if they want to stay in Oakland, if they want to go to Vegas. They prospects, they have, I believe, one in the top 100. I mean, and then if you look, I'm pulling up their roster right now just to get more on it. Really, the only player on that, two players on the starting lineup that really jump off to me are Brent Rooker and JD Davis. Those are the two names. That's it. Everybody else, yeah, okay, I'm interested to see what they do, but there's nothing really else there that stands out to me in that lineup that says, oh yeah, that's gonna fight for fourth or third. Um, the pitching is what I really find interesting. I the fact that Paul Blackburn, a guy that I believe has been mentioned on numerous trade deadlines, is the number four. That I like. That tells you what they have as far as depth for pitching to watch. I like Alex Wood. That signing was extremely surprising as far as I'm concerned. Ross
Yep.
Stripling is the two, and JP Sears is the three. I'm not familiar with Joe Boyle very much, but I'm interested to see what he does. This team just doesn't jump out to me as, yeah, we're going to compete. And I mean, I don't think they're going to compete for a little while.
I mean, just looking at the one thing that you said through all of that, which just speaks volumes to what they've had over the course of the last few years, and knowing that they've been at the bottom all the time and trade deadline, is the lack of talent down in the minors, at least when it comes to in the top 100 for prospects. I mean, I think a lot of that's got to do with guys having to come up and be in the majors too soon. Um, it's just, to me, a little bit disappointing because I think baseball's better when the A's are competing. I think that it's disappointing that ownership group won't put any money into it, and to see them move is going to be sad. But yeah, there's not a lot of names there. They've always found a way to deal with pitching not as well as and successful as the Tampa Bay Rays, but they can always figure out something with their pitching staff. And offensively, I think they're going to struggle in general. I'm excited to see Zach Geloff, but other than that, there's not a lot to mention on the A's in regards to offense. So I think finishing dead last, I had them at like 70 wins roughly, but other than that, I don't think there's much really to talk about with the A's in regards to what they've got. They're not willing to spend money, and I think the best hope for that franchise is to move because that's the only thing that's going to generate them to spend money. They're going to have to put fans in the seats. So if they move, they better be planning on spending some money because they can't be spitting out the same product.
Yep. I mean, like you said, Geloff is another name I didn't even think of. I was looking at that. And Langoliers. Those are another name I'd like to be interested to watch a little bit this year.
Yeah, no, they're both talented. JD Davis just left the Giants and did sign there. They have JJ Bleday, not bad, and Seth Brown, but no name that really jumps out at you off the paper right now, but we'll see. So fourth, we both had the Angels. And I don't think that's any surprise. They didn't make any real big splashes in free agency after losing Ohtani. Team's kind of a mess. Got Trout that's aging. You've got a third baseman who's basically told you he just does this for the paycheck, which is disappointing. And their pitching is just really, really piss poor, in my opinion. They don't really have that true number one anymore. Back in the day when they used to have Weaver, Lackey, going even further back, they just don't really have much talent, this Angels team. And Trout's up there in years, and I hate to say it, but he's on the back end of his career, and I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't finish out his career with the Angels.
Yeah, that's an interesting name to watch this year because it was all speculation that Trout was going to be traded, and then he kind of said he wanted to be here. He wanted to see them spend money. Well, that didn't happen, and I mean, it's going to be an interesting thing to watch. At least maybe not this year, but in the future with Trout and what he decides to do going forward. The Rendon comments just are baffling to me, and he's not alone in that. And guys have come out and said that he may have addressed it the wrong way, but
yeah,
he's not alone in that.
It's pretty hard. You go there to a team, they spend some money that 1 year when Rendon signed. Forget who else signed that same year, but they just haven't had it out there. Joe Adell has never clicked, never become what he had for potential. They do have Brandon Drury, Mickey Monac, Aaron Hicks. They do, and Zach Neto. They do have some young talent there and some veterans mixed in. So offensively, they're not bad, but just their pitching staff really with Tyler Anderson, Sandoval, Dietmers, Canning, Chase Saleth. Just no one there is a true ace, especially in the West to compete. So I think they'll finish fourth, and I have them for another losing record at 76 and 86 on the year, unfortunately.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I have the A's losing 100 games, so I mean that sounds pretty spot on for both of those teams.
Yep. So who'd you have finishing third?
I had the Texas Rangers, and I'm excited for that lineup. I mean, adding Wyatt Langford to it after what they did last year in the playoffs and the World Series, I'm excited to watch that lineup from top to bottom. Especially, they added actually Jared Walsh as a non-roster invite, and it seems like he's going to make the team to play first base. It's another name I like to see. Oh, yeah, I just looked up and I'm seeing Young hitting. The one thing to me is their pitching. And Jamie, who writes for us and covers the Rangers, I've gone back and forth with her on this. She doesn't like the fact I have them third, but I think the tough part is you're going through the first half with a rotation of Eovaldi, who I love, John Gray, who's got his question marks, Andrew Heaney, which as a 3, I'm not sold on. I think he's a good 4 or 5 guy, but as a 3, not big on him. Dane Dunning, who he pitched really well in the postseason last year, I do believe, or at least in the regular season, if I remember correctly. One of those two. Not sold on Cody Bradford as your number 5. So I think, do they struggle in the first half? Like Langford's going to have his rookie issues he's got to work with. It's his first time in the big leagues. Granted, he went off in the spring, but then, they're missing DeGrom, they're missing Tyler Mahle, and they're missing Scherzer. Those three will be back, I'm assuming, probably by July. And so, get them back, but that's great. How far are you out, and how big of a hole are you digging yourself out of now? I mean, that's why realistically I have them third.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. We've discussed their pitching. It's not what it could be if you had DeGrom and Scherzer there. But I think for me, when I was looking at it, you have Nathaniel Lowe, whatever, at first base, who might miss opening day with an oblique. You have Corey Seager that has sports hernia surgery, could be ready for opening day. So you've already got not just your pitching staff, you've got some guys already dinged up heading into the season. Now they do have Duran, who's at like in super utility that hit really well for them last year and can play anywhere. Will cover some ground for them and fill some holes. But I just think that it'll be very interesting for this team to see if they can make it through the season healthy with their lineup. The pitching, we already know there's going to be question marks, but I think that they are probably one of my teams, and we had it in the first pod and we discussed it, being the one that fall the furthest in regards to expectations. So I think the Rangers finishing third in the West is very likely given the talent at the top. So second, I have the Astros, as do you. The Astros didn't really do anything this offseason big. I think nothing to their offense. They did go out and I believe grab, for crying out loud, the closer.
Hader.
Yeah, they signed Hader, so they add another arm to their bullpen. He's an impressive. He wasn't as impressive last year when he was with the Padres. He's not the same guy he was, or wasn't the same guy he was when he was with the Brewers, but still a nice arm to add to that bullpen because you still have Ryan Presley as well, who's there from the right side. So I think it'll be interesting to see how they're used during the season. I don't think it's necessarily a closer by committee, but
he does have one of the best flows in all of baseball, though. You got to give it to Hader.
He does have the hair, but it'll be very interesting because they still have Brian Abreu. They have a good bullpen, and their pitching's there, but I don't know. I just really am not a huge fan of Alex Bregman. Not a huge fan of Altuve. Both very good, but at the same time, both also at the back end, or Altuve's at the back end of his career. Verlander, you don't know when he's coming back.
I thought it was 2 weeks. I thought he was only out for
Could 10, be. I know he's staying behind to throw a couple minor league games, but Jeremy Pena struggled last year for that.
Yeah, but I like him a lot in the eight spot in that lineup. I think that's where he's going to get back on track.
He went to University of Maine.
I think I did know that.
I'm not a huge fan of Jake Myers in center, honestly. McCormick's all right in left. Tucker is great in right. And then you've got Alvarez at DH. And as long as he can stay healthy, he'll just continue to rake like he has previous years. So their lineup still has plenty of pop. It's just really getting to that bullpen. You've got Verlander, Valdez, Christian Javier, Jose Urquidy, McCullers, if he can ever stay healthy, and Hunter Brown. And they still have Luis Garcia and JP France that can start some games too. So it's not a horrible team. I think they're just getting a little older, and they're battling a lot of injuries throughout the year. So it's going to be very interesting to see what the Astros do this year.
Yeah, but how long is Urquidy out for?
That I'm honestly not.
He was injured in March, and it's a strained forearm, so who knows how long that could be.
Yeah, that could turn into, end of April once they build him back up. So they've got some questions.
So I guess we can jump right to the top of the division, what we both have,
Yeah.
since we've already talked about the other teams. But I want to say that if the so the reason, as you figured out, we have the Mariners both finishing first in the division.
Yeah.
And the main reason why I do is I think they have one of the best rotations in all of baseball from top to bottom. Honestly, if the Astros were fully healthy with Verlander and Urquidy and McCullers, they're right there in that conversation. Right there. And the thing that I think the injuries to the Astros and the question marks of how long they're out could hurt them to start the season. But I really, and this might give a little bit too much, but I think Julio Rodriguez is due for an MVP type season this year. I mean, that first season broke onto the scene. Last season, he had a good season. And more so, I think it was more in the second half. But this season, I think, is a big breakout season for him. And especially with Jorge Polanco hitting behind him and adding Mitch Garver. Mitch Haniger to that lineup. They're good. The question I have is I'm not familiar with this Dominic Canzoni kid. They got him in that trade for Eugenio Suarez. And the other one is I want to see what Josh Rojas does. I mean, putting him in the 9 spot is going to be an interesting one. I like the fact they have Luis Urias as a depth piece coming off the bench. Dylan Moore is another nice one off the bench. And Zavala. Zavala is an interesting one I want to see. So I think, right now, I'm a little confused on what Fangraphs has here because it says Castillo, Kirby, Gilbert, Miller, and Hancock Wu is hurt.
Yeah.
So Wu has elbow inflammation. Okay, so elbow inflammation.
Who knows how bad that is because he's young.
It always scares me, elbow inflammation, because like Yuri Perez, isn't that what he's dealing with too? So like, and we joked about it last night when we did our draft that like, is he possibly Tommy John? You never know with elbow inflammation.
No.
So
I wrote an article about the Mariners and 3 bold predictions, and I would not be surprised if they have 2 of the top 5 in voting for the Cy Young for AL. Between Castillo, Gilbert, and Kirby.
Yeah.
Those 3, I mean, Castillo number 1, and then, Gilbert's the big name, but I think George Kirby's got a lot of talent there too, and I think he's just scratching the surface of what he's going to be able to do. And I really, really, really,
it's funny
really like Munoz at the back of the bullpen.
Same. The other one I like is that Stanek signing. But I actually wrote an article, I think we talked about it a couple weeks ago, where I wrote the top 5 Cy Young candidates, favorites for the American League. And it was tough for me because I wanted to put both Gilbert and Castillo in there, but I went with one. And honestly, to tell you the truth, now I think about it, I can't remember who I put in there. I think it was Castillo. But Gilbert is a big one to watch this year. I wished that when they were talking about trading the Red Sox, trying to get another starting pitcher in a trade, I wanted Gilbert more than anything. And I think I even wrote about that back in November about going to get Logan Gilbert and how it made sense.
He's just 8 months older than Kirby. They're both 26, both right-handed, and they both have an ERA under 3.7 projected. Actually, looking at this, their 3 starters are projected to have under their top 3 under 3.7, and then Miller 4.1, and then Hancock at this point 4.57. So their pitching staff, even with Wu gone for a little bit, is top of the line. And I really like the signings they had with, Polanco making that move, and then Mitch Haniger coming back over in trade. I think if he's healthy, he'll easily be, 20 to 25 home runs. And then Mitch Garver, if he can stay healthy and hit like he did last year in the playoffs for the Rangers, this lineup is dangerous, especially with Julio involved. And then you've got Cal Raleigh as well, who I think is one of the most underrated offensive catchers in the game because a lot of people are too busy talking about Adley and JT too much, but I think he's going to have a phenomenal year as well.
Raleigh could compete for the Silver Slugger at the catcher spot with Rushman. That's another one. Yep.
So the Mariners are very talented. They do generally get off to slow starts, which was part of their issue last year, missing the playoffs, is everyone was waiting for them to get hot, and it took a lot longer than expected, and they ended up missing the playoffs. So watch for them. If they're a team that could blow up in our face, and if they get off to a slow start, have an injury here or there, one of those pitching arms could become available. I don't think it's likely, but if they get off to another slow start, you never know what can happen.
Yeah, everything's on the table at that point.
Yep. So it'll be very interesting. So the West of the three divisions, most likely the easiest one. The Central will be next, and then the East. And I think there'll be a lot more discussion when it comes to the Central. But at this time, as everyone's watching this podcast, anyone that's part of the Facebook pages, whether it be Inside the Diamonds or Inside Baseball, and you're liking what you see and you're interested in writing and joining us, we encourage you to follow the website down below, insidethediamonds.com/join us, and just let us know who your team is, what you're interested in. If you have any questions, CJ is the main editor right now, so he can fill you in regards to what we're looking for, how to do it, and kind of what the expectations are. So if you like baseball, you've got a favorite team, you've got some spare time, and you just want to write about your team, whether it be about roster moves, call-ups, previews for the upcoming series, or even just some interesting news and notes that you're finding, rumors that you're hearing, anything that's would be of value and of interest to you as a baseball fan, we can get you connected and get you started. We have plenty of teams that still need some coverage on a daily basis as the season gets going. It's going to be really hard for the majority of us to cover, as many teams as we have been over the spring training. But, if you're interested in baseball, check us out, reach out to us, let us know in a comment or go to the website and click on join us and see about joining the group. And it's a good community, a lot of fun, nothing serious. It's just, right now, as long as you want to write about baseball and have a favorite team or an interest, we can help you out and put you on the right path.
Yep. A lot of open opportunity and a lot of things to write about, especially with opening day coming on Thursday.
Absolutely. So let's get right back to it with a Central Division. I don't think we'll have any arguments here, but who do you have finishing last in the Central?
The Chicago White Sox. Yes. And, they just traded their number one starting pitcher, so they just got significantly worse. And so, they were fifth place as far as I was concerned with before that. And now, Dylan Cease is gone. Garrett Crochet to start the year is your number one. Interesting. I believe he's never made a start. So, are they doing a bullpen for opening day, a bullpen game? Soroka's going to be fun to watch. I want to see what he does on his comeback. Fetty, and I like Flexen. I'm not, and Nastrini as a non-roster invite making the team will be interesting. The one move I'm curious about is Michael Kopech as your closer. Is that to keep him healthy? Because he's been hurt so often. To me, he's like a Garrett Whitlock for the Red Sox. Like, he's all over the place. Is like, are they doing the bullpen thing now to keep him healthy? Like, there's a lot there. The lineup, 1 to 5 is good. Paul DeYoung, I'm curious what he does there. But then the bottom, Maldonado's, a great defensive catcher. Love the signing there. But Nicky Lopez, Dominic Fletcher at the bottom, not big on the bottom. But Young Moncada, Benintendi actually took a step back last year. This team from top to bottom is just not good. Not good. And they're just going to finish in last. I don't know how many games they're going to finish out because this division is so wide open, but they're just not there.
I only have them winning 66 games. And I did that before Cease was traded. And I left it there because I think they got worse, but I don't know if they can lose more than 66 games. It'll be very interesting to see. There's nothing really there to like. They've got some names, but they're just, Luis Robert out in center. I like him. I don't think I don't think he'll be there long term. I think honestly they wanted to trade him in this offseason, but I think like Cease going so late, I think they were holding out, and I think that he may be one of the top names to go at the trade deadline where they try to maximize because this team's a hot mess, which is too bad because for a franchise like that you'd like to see them compete, but they don't have much. I will say Soroka did look good. I did see him in his one of his minor league starts. He looked good. It'd be nice for him and baseball if he was healthy this year to see what he can do. Crochet, if he's stretched out, he'll be interesting. I think that he could surprise some people. I think he could come out hot out of the gates and then just kind of peter out, come June, July, just because it'll be so much wear and tear on his arm that he's not used to in regards to the amount of innings he'd pitch and how many pitches in total. So it'll be very interesting to see. But overall, that team finishing 30 games under 500, I think is pretty easy to lock down just with what they have, unless something happens. But right now, I can't see him doing any better than that. So, who do you have finishing fourth?
You had the White Sox fifth too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, dead last.
Okay, so the fourth one, and I went back and forth, but like I said, this division is so wide open, and I'll explain as I get through it. But fourth place, I have the Guardians, which might surprise some people, but I think they're going to fall out of it. I love the pitching. And I've said that for so many teams that we've talked about. I'm a pitching guy. I like watching pitchers. I tune in for pitchers. I bet pitchers, strikeouts, over, unders, and earned runs, innings pitched, all that stuff. I love pitchers. So to me, it's the lineup that's the problem. I think Bieber could be gone by the deadline. I like Stephen Kwan. We talked about that last night during the draft.
Yep.
Jose Ramirez is an MVP candidate every year. But Will Brennan is your six hitter. Not big on that. Tyler Freeman is your center fielder. Okay, we'll see what he does. Rocchio is, I believe, I might have him as the top Guardians prospect in the top 100. If not, he's in the top 3. I think he's going to be a fun name to watch. And make sure you watch him because he could be something. I like him in the 9 hole. That's a good spot, especially for a rookie, because you're getting, accustomed to the game, and then there's no pressure on him. And you slide somebody up who's a top prospect, and you put him in the 4 or 5 hole. Now you have the pressure to succeed. You put him in the 9 hole. Their job is to turn the lineup over, and I think that's a good spot for him to find some success, and it's a good starting point for him. He might find himself in the middle, top of the order at some point, but for right now, the 9 spot's a good spot for him.
Okay. I don't agree, but I'll get into that when I get to where I have them placed. I had the Kansas City Royals finishing 4th in the division. And that's with me even liking what they did in the offseason by signing Lugo, signing Walker. I did like those additions. I think Cole Ragans is going to have a good year. I just am not sold on the back half of that with Walker and Alex Marsh. I just, and Brady Singer just doesn't do it to me. For me, the Singer and Marsh are very, very suspect. And I think Walker, if Walker can be what he did for the Padres, great. I just don't know if he can do it again. And their bullpen, I mean, they did add Will Smith. They have Stratton. I'm not a fan of their pitching staff after, the top 2 guys. It's very cloudy for me. The offense, you've got Witt, you got Vinny P, Sal, and MJ. They did sign Renfro, but other than that, that lineup doesn't do much for me. I will be interested to see what Nelson Velasquez can do. Given a full year, it looks like right now he'll be playing DH. But that lineup, Garcia, can he do it again? Can he be effective? they don't have a lot of guys that get on base often. And I don't think they're going to score a lot of runs. They've got wit, but I'm just not sold in general. There's too many question marks still. They're still pretty young. And I was thinking Melendez would be better hitting for average than he was. And that was kind of a disappointment. So for me, I have the Royals finishing at 81 and 81 on the year and finishing fourth in the division. Just too many question marks. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if they won the division either because of the young kids and what they can do and what that pitching staff does. But looking at it right now, I've got the Royals finishing fourth in the Central.
Well, I guess that leads me
Who do
right
you?
into
Yeah, right into
I have them
yours. So
finishing. They're finishing third for me. I like the
okay,
moves. I like Waka. I like Lugo. I think Raggins is going to be due for another big step forward. He looked good last year in a couple starts. Singer, I like Singer. I like him better as a 3 than I do a 1. I think that takes stress off of him. I like the
yep,
bullpen. I like the addition of Will Smith, who is going to see his streak run out of being a World Series champion. I believe it's the last 3 years, or maybe 2. I like the addition of Schreiber from the Red Sox. I like moving Jordan Lyles to the bullpen, take stress off of him. I think he was actually like 0-18 last year. Not 0-18, that's too high, but like 0-12, 0-13
yeah,
to
he
a certain
struggled.
point. I like Nick Lofton off the bench for the lineup. The lineup, like you said, is really hit or miss. I like the addition of Renfro. The one name you didn't mention that I like is Adam Frazier. I think that's a nice little
Yep,
piece to slide into the 7th spot in the lineup. I think, and a lot of people have said it, like there was an article on MLB.com today that even said, like, voting on from the players, what's the most surprised team this year? And they said the Royals. And so that's
yep,
coming from players. So who have to face these guys? I think they are a sneaky team. They finished, I believe, in 4th last year, moving up with, the talent they have. And they're a team like the A's. I didn't mention that the Astros have 0 players in the top 100. I believe the Royals might have 1, maybe 2 off the top of my head. I'm not positive. Jeez. But they got pieces. Another name that's going to be in AAA to start the year that could be up at some point is Austin Nola. So
yep.
I think that division's so wide open that you could finish, 86 and have 86 wins, 87 wins, and you win the division. It's so wide open. So I think the pieces they added are to compete for that. I don't think they're there, but 3rd place seems like a good spot for them and what they've added and what they've done this offseason.
Okay.
Oh, what a bomb.
Who hit it?
Tyler O'Neill.
Good. Hopefully he stays healthy.
Yeah.
Be nice. So for me, finishing third, I have the Minnesota Twins. I have the Minnesota Twins finishing third. Uh, just looking at it, their roster, they've got names. They've got. I really am excited to see Royce Lewis play a full year. They've got him slated to bat cleanup, having Correa in front of him, Buxton and Julian leading off. There's a lot of question marks at 2 and 3 right there between Buxton and Correa. They're both going to end up missing time. So who fills in for them? And that's some pretty big production you're looking for out of the 2 and 3. Both, 20 some odd home runs apiece. They're going to miss time, but they don't really have anyone on the bench. They have Kyle Farmer. They've got Willie Castro, who was a great surprise last year. Those of you that play fantasy and are looking for someone that hits for average and can steal some bases, Willie Castro late can definitely do that for you. They've got Margot as their, 4th outfielder on the bench or 5th outfielder, depending on Castro and where they want him. But there's a lot of question marks. You've got Jeffers, who played well last year. They're going to start Matt Wallner in left. I'm not 100% sold on their lineup. If they stay healthy, then they very easily could win the division with that offense. But I just don't. That's not feasible. And their pitching staff, Duhan's hurt. Don't know who's going to end up closing for him to start the year. Lopez is their ace. I do like Joe Ryan and I do like Louis Varland, but I do not like Paddock, and I do not like Bailey Ober. Those two
Hmm.
right there, I just am not sold on either one. Bailey Ober is a name that people like. I see him drafted quite a bit and early. I just am not sold on him myself. And just in general, I think that offense, if you take Buxton and Correa both out, I'm not sure that they have enough firepower to win the games that Lopez and Joe Ryan aren't starting. And once you get into that bullpen until Lujan's back, it's going to be pretty tough, especially in this division, because you said it earlier where you said that, maybe an 87 win team to win the division. And that's exactly what I have for my top team is winning 87 games. I have the Twins winning 83. And like I said, if they stayed healthy, they can very easily take the division, but they haven't been able to stay healthy with those two big names, Correa and Buxton, in a long time. Those guys haven't played full seasons. So I got the Twins in third. Who do you have second?
I guess we're going right into it. The Minnesota Twins.
Yep.
Before we get into that, just got hit with it. Brian Wu will start the season on the injured list. So there goes that. So he's out at least 2 starts. But I have the Twins, and I like they won the division last year. And what'd they lose? They lost Kenta Maeda, and who was the other one? They lost one other arm. Why am I drawing a blank on it?
Sonny Gray.
Yep.
Sonny Gray with the Reds now.
And you lose those 2 arms, and you still have a rotation that looks like this after winning the division. It's a step back, but it's still a good rotation. The lineup, like you said, injuries are a concern. And, at the end of the day, do I have question marks about their injuries? Yes. But, Julian took a big step forward last year. Royce Lewis turned into a stud in the postseason. I mean, what he did against the Blue Jays in that wild card series was fantastic. Buxton and Correa, like you said, injuries, I think they're still, when they're healthy, solid bats that could lead them too close to the division. But we'll get to who I have winning the division, or pretty much I guess it tells you right now who I have. But towards the bottom, I like Jeffers and I like Kirilloff as, bench pieces. I like Christian Vasquez coming off the bench. Curious to see how much time him and Jeffers split together. But I think overall they have a pretty decent team that could make some noise. So second in the division, does that lead to a wild card? That remains to be seen. We'll talk about that, I believe we said next week.
Yep.
But for right now, that's where I have them. And again, injuries could change all of that. They could change this whole division wide open. It's literally this and the NL Central, I think, the 2 toughest divisions to pick.
Yeah, I think that when looking at everything and remembering what we discussed in the National League, the Central seems to be one of the tightest in both. And it's going to be a fun race to watch from start to finish. So the biggest difference we had in the Central was you had the Guardians 4th and I have them 2nd. And I love their pitching staff if healthy. I really, really thought that McKenzie was going to break out last year. He got injured, struggled, but I think that he's a name that people are sleeping on this year. I think he's going to come back, bounce back nicely. Bieber, I think, is going to start 28 games. Hopefully, they'll be in contention, so he'll finish the year as a Guardian. And I like Tanner Beebe. I like Gavin Williams, who I don't believe is going to start in the rotation due to an injury, but they do have, for crying out loud, who's their other pitcher that, not Gavin Williams, Logan Allen. I like Logan Allen too. And Carlos Carrasco, who will do the spot starting most likely. So they have some depth, and the biggest difference that they have, other than the Twins that I've seen, is they have an elite closer in Emmanuel Clase, who I think is one of the better closers in all of baseball. And I think their bullpen is a little bit better than some of the others below them in my eyes. You weren't a huge fan of their offense, but they get on base. I like the beginning of the lineup where you've got Quan, you've got Jimenez, you've got Ramirez, you've got Josh Naylor, and then I like Bo. I think Bo Naylor is going to have a good year this year. Other than that, it is a little wishy-washy. I do like them having Rocco batting ninth to start the year. So it's going to be very interesting. The one guy that I just do not understand is Miles Straw. Now, if that guy could bat ninth and just slap hit and not try to hit the ball out in the outfield every time, he'd get on base and be able to steal his 40. Um, I think Will Brennan's going to surprise some people. Uh, Earlier in the year, in the rumors, I had the Josh Naylor and Will Brennan going to the Mariners in return for, I think it was Bryce Miller, as the Indians or the Guardians, excuse me, were trying to rebuild their rotation with some of the injuries. And I think Will Brennan is going to be a guy that he may not hit, 270, but he's going to hit a 255, 260, and he'll hit, probably in between 18 and 22 home runs. And I think he'll surprise some people this year. And I think with that pitching staff, they'll just find a way to 86 wins and finish second in the division. I'm kind of a Guardians fan. I really, like you, I like watching the pitching. I really like Clase, and I like the back end of that bullpen a lot. Now, if their pitching can get them there, they can have the ERA that they did last year as a group. They should be competing throughout the year, and 86 wins is where I have them right now, which now leads us to first, where we both agreed on. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about who you got at first.
All right, so this is unbiased, by the way. This is just,
yep.
I'm actually, let's just lean back. Can I see it? A little bit. It's my Tiger sign behind me. But this is the most complete team in this division. I mean, and I wrote about this the other day on why they will win the division. And my biggest reason, and the number one reason I stick by, is they have the most depth in this division for pitching. I mean, we're talking the fact that Matt Manning is in AAA to start the year. You have Ty Madden, who is another big arm. He's going to be down probably AAA to start the year. He pitched well this spring. They added, again, unbiased. They added Kenta Maeda and Jack Flaherty. Skubal is a Cy Young. You and I have had this conversation. Yeah. Skubal is the underrated Cy Young candidate this year. Casey Mize is a question mark. Can he stay healthy? Can he pitch like we know he can? He looked great this spring. Reese Olson's another name. Sawyer Gibson Long's hurt. We can go through the lineup all day long. To me, having Javier Baez slide down to the 7th spot is fantastic. Can't wait to see what Parker Meadows does. Colt Keith signed an extension. He's going to make the club from what it sounds like. That's a big move. Yep. Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson are the future stars of the team. Kerry Carpenter's another one. He came onto the scene last year. And with Miguel Cabrera retiring, you're not taking the bats away from him. The trade for Mark Canha, another big one I like. And Gio Urshela, underrated signing. Love that one. And then, on top of that, we're talking the bullpen. The bullpen is underrated. Alex Lang is your closer from what it sounds like. AJ Hinch, the manager of the Tigers, did say that it was a competition. Could be Foley, could be Shelby Miller, could be Andrew Chafin. There's a bunch of options. The fact that, again, go back to depth of starting pitching, Joey Wentz, Alex Faedo, both in the bullpen to start the year. There's 2 more arms that could give you 5 innings, if they had to. On top of that, again, Shelby Miller, such an underrated signing. I think he could be the steal of the offseason right now. Just the way he's pitched this spring. And then the bench, Andy Ibanez has 5 bombs and 11 RBIs this season in the spring. McKinstry back on your bench. When you slide him into that lineup, he is fantastic. There is just so much depth on this team from top to bottom, pitching, bullpen, starting lineup, bench, what they have in the minors. I mean, we can go through the names in the minors. Dylan Dingler, a catcher that is waiting in the wings, could be the starting catcher maybe next year. Going through, they signed Keston Hiura in the offseason. They did him as a minor league signing and a non-roster invite. He's not a bad piece that they could slide into first base. Jace Young, the younger brother of Josh from the Rangers, he can do second base. They're going to try him at third base. I'm trying to think as I'm scrolling through Fangraphs here. Caleb Badu is now going to be in AAA. Another piece I like is Justin Henry Malloy. There is just so much talent waiting in the minors that can come up if somebody gets injured that there is no question. Like you talk about these other teams, like, okay, an injury happens to them, they're in trouble. We said it, I think you said it for the Twins. You said it for I said it for the Guardians. There's an injury coming that could hurt that team. Whereas the Tigers, they have the depth in the minor leagues where literally an injury happens and the next man up mentality, and they can cover it. I'll scroll down to the pitching is my favorite part of the whole thing. We talked Matt Manning, I already said. Ty Madden's another one. Englert, who was a bullpen arm for them last year, is now down there. I think he's going to work on starting. They got Caden Montero, who I like. He pitched at Erie last year. West Michigan and Erie last year. Wilmer Flores, who's in the top 10. Jackson Jobs in AA. Another one that everybody kind of talks about, unless if you're a Tigers fan. If you're not a Tigers fan, you may not know him, is Brant Herter. Left-handed arm, looks fantastic. He could be a bullpen piece as the rosters expand in September. Just so much depth. And like I said, Gibson Long is out. But when he comes back, there's another arm you can add to your rotation. And just there is so much. Everybody has their concerns with Baez and Torkelson. Will Torkelson be a 100 RBI guy again? Yeah, the swing's there. Will he have his slumps? Of course he will. Baez is a bigger question mark, but I think sliding him to the 7 spot in this lineup, you could even move him to 8 and put Urshela 7.
Yeah.
You put him 8, what's he seeing? More fastballs than anything. Pitchers are going to know, okay, get 2 strikes. If I throw this slider away or curveball away, he's going to chase. But it will get him back in more of a rhythm. And I think this team is just from top to bottom so much depth that they're going to not run away in the aspect of how many games they win the division, but on paper, as you watch them, they're just going to look miles above, whoever finishes second. And realistically, I wrote about the other day about why they win the American League Central this year. One thing is last year they had a great record against the Central. What happened was I think they had 6 wins in total against the American League East.
Yeah.
That's what ended up costing them the division. Or no, it was 9 games because literally if they had a 9-game difference, they won 6 games, but it was like a 9. If they had won 9, if they made it to 500 against the American League East, they would have tied the Twins for first place. They finished 9 games back last year. So it's a different team. The moves they made, they should get there, which puts them right in the top of the division, and they're better. With Skubal fully healthy, what we expect for a full season, and the depth behind him if he isn't, that there's no reason that this team's not first in that division.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything that you've said. I like the Gio signing quite a bit to play third. I think that just his solid glove and his average, if you put him in front of Baez and you hit Baez 8th, I think the more you can bury Baez so he sees as many fastballs, I think you'll see him be as aggressive as ever and probably strike out just as much as he has been. But I think that it takes a little bit of pressure off him because the last thing you want is that offensive pressure to eat into his defense abilities for Baez, because Baez still has a pretty darn good glove. I think they need him up the middle. I do like their bench. They've got a lot of talent. The one thing that we've talked about, because I like the pitching too, the one thing that you and I have talked about, and I'm not a huge fan of the back end of their bullpen. And with that said, you mentioned Casey Mize, and you and I have talked about it. Is he a name that could eventually slide to that closer role to kind of utilize him a little bit differently, take a little stress off him, and let him focus on being that power pitcher, but for 3 outs? Maybe come in, throw his 20 pitches, 25 pitches if it takes that much to get through an inning and become an elite closer. And if you get this Tigers team an elite closer with the talent they have, top to bottom in the lineup, but also within their pitching staff, that there would set them apart and put them head and shoulders above the rest of that division in my opinion. And I think the biggest thing that we're talking about right now is I think this is just the beginning. And I think you do too for this Tigers team in regards to all the weapons they have coming up through the minor league system, that they're going to be, talked about quite often being at the top of this central division for a long time to come. And I think that one piece, because you and I talked about Lang, I'm not sold on him. And I think you get them a power arm in the back of that bullpen, and this team has a whole new look, in my opinion. So the other thing that, as we were talking about this, and you talk about Tigers were awful for a long time, just like the A's. But look at where the Tigers are with their prospects.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They've just evaluated differently. Not saying that the A's won't get there or the White Sox won't get there, but the Tigers have done it right. They did struggle. They did struggle for a long time. But what they have now in their system and coming up is going to allow this team to be contenders for a long time, especially if these young guys can stay healthy. So the Tigers, I had 87 wins. I think this division is going to be tight from top to bottom. And I think, 3 of these 5 names will be interchangeable, or team names will be interchangeable. It'll be an interesting race to watch, similar to, like we've mentioned, the NL Central. So with that said, that's the Central. The last division is the East. But before we do that, if you guys are interested in fans of Inside the Diamond, the content we put out on the webpage, the stuff you see in the podcast, we encourage you to go to the store. https://store inside the diamond.com/ go there. There's hats. I'm sorry. There's t-shirts, there's hoodies right now. We are in the middle of building this website and building this following, so there'll be more to come. We're talking about some other fun items to be on the store for people to grab, wear, support the brand. So we encourage you to go out there, check out, see what we've got. And if you've got any ideas or thoughts that you'd like to see us offer, write a comment, email us, let us know what you think would be nice to have. Because as we said, we're just building this right now. We're starting slow, but we will have more to offer. And we encourage you to go there and support the brand and buy some stuff, and let us know what else you think would be interesting to see available at the team store, at the brand store. So please check it out.
Yeah, I got to get my sweatshirt.
Oh, you've got one?
Not yet. I got to order it.
Yeah.
I'm just lazy.
Well, happens. So I don't want to rush through the East, but my real job has called, and there is some stuff going on at work that I need to be present for. So we won't rush through the East by any means, but I will have to, once we're done, head out there. And then what we'll do on the next pod is we will hit the winners of the Rookie of the Year, AL and NL, and then do the Cy Youngs and MVP, and then Manager of the Year. So we'll focus on that, and then we'll have a little bit of discussion about opening day weekend and just kind of hit anything that was important to us. So that'll be next pod. But this pod, we're going to finish up with the East.
Everybody say thank you to JC's work, so you're not going to get stuck with another 2-hour episode. We're going to make this quicker.
Yeah. Work has been my life recently for a year, it's always been, but recently it's been a little bit crazier, and getting calls late at night, that's fine. So who do you have finishing last in the AL East?
The Tampa Bay Rays. And I'm ready for everybody on Twitter. I don't know if we've released an episode with our Twitter, so this might actually save me. I'm ready for the backlash on this. But they just don't do it for me this year. I know they're a pitching factory. I know they are. But the injuries they sustained just worry me. And, I like their bullpen. Well, I shouldn't say I like their bullpen. I like Pete Fairbanks. As far as their starting pitching, Savali's an interesting one. Eflin's okay. I like him. He pitched well last year. But Littell, being a Tigers fan, I'm familiar with Tyler Alexander. Good luck with him. I hope you enjoy him. And then the lineup is, I love the lineup 1 to 5. After that's where I have question marks. And so to me, it's just, this is, I said it for the National League last week, is it's like a 1A, 1B. In this case, it's a 4A, 4B, and I have the Rays as the 4B in this case.
Yeah, I don't have them finishing dead last. I right now currently have the Red Sox dead last in the division, which pains me. Being Maine kid and growing up watching the team, I think the Red Sox lineup is intriguing. The biggest holdback I have on them being a team that can finish outside of the cellar is the health of Trevor Story, the health of Tyler O'Neill, and what are we going to get from Abreu and Duran this year? And will Yoshida be any different when he was talked about in trades? I'm very interested to see. You haven't heard a lot about him this spring. It'll be very interesting to see. And I really think that as much as I like Connor Wong defensively, I just don't think he's the catcher that we need to compete. And this lineup can be good and can put up some runs, but you take a couple of injuries here and there, and then that team just instantly just kind of, they'll compete and have fun and be close in games, but they just won't have that firepower outside of Devers and Tristan Casas to really power through. And the pitching staff to me right now, shit, at this point, I'm okay with signing Jordan Montgomery. And I don't like him one bit pitching in Fenway. So I'm just not really sold on anything that they really have. I do hope that Hendricks comes back later in the year and can pitch. That's a good feel-good story. Kenley Jensen doesn't want to be there at this point in time. He wants to be on a contender, and they're just not willing to spend. So I think that's a name to go. I think this team will look a lot different come August, unfortunately. And right now, I like Bello. I'm just not sure he can do it for a full year, and I'd hate to think that Nick Pivetta is going to be our best pitcher statistically again this year with some of the numbers he put up. So I'm just not sold on the Red Sox this year. I hope they prove me wrong, but I have them finishing in the cellar in the East.
So right into it, I guess I'm going next. I got them finishing fourth. And like I said, it's a 4A, 4B situation. I think, are we talking about this team finishing towards the top of the division? If you take Whitlock and Houck out and you go sign somebody, like we said, Lorenzen, and Giolito's healthy, whatever, or Bauer or whatever, then maybe we're having a different conversation. But I like Cutter Crawford. I think he's number 5. As the number 3, it's a lot of pressure on the kid. I like Bayo. I think Bayo's ready for that pressure. He's working with Pedro, and this is his second, maybe even third spring training working with Pedro. He's ready to take that on. He's ready to be the horse of this rotation. The one thing that I think everybody's not talking about, and it is what it is. I mean, Andrew Bailey, what he did with the Giants rotation, coming here, and you've already seen it in this spring on what he's done with this Red Sox rotation and what they've done. Now, granted, it's been 5 innings over the last couple of weeks, 3 innings to start, 4, like ramping it up. But seeing what they've done and what he's had the effect to do to make this rotation what it is, Tanner Houck is your number 5 starter. He is the best ERA out of your 5 starters in the spring. And I mean, that's just the question with Tanner Houck is, can he make it through the lineup 2-3 times? That's where he struggled. That's an Andrew Bailey thing. He'll find a way. He'll have another pitch. Like they'll teach him another pitch, and he'll learn that, and he'll be okay. The pitching is the biggest question mark. The lineup, Rafaela, biggest guy I'm watching this year. His glove is Jackie Bradley. His glove is Jackie Bradley, but his bat is better. And the thing
the bar was set pretty low other than 1 year.
Well, so the thing with him was always his strikeout ratio, which he struggled with last spring. Went to the minors, still struggled with it, figured it out, taking pictures, working on that. And you saw the power come back. And then you see it this spring. I believe I saw it. I think last year to this point, he had 1 walk and like certain amount of strikeouts. and he had like 3 strikeouts a couple weeks ago when I heard this, and the walks were up. So he's doing a better plate approach, which moving him into the 7th spot in this lineup is exciting, and it keeps Yoshida off the field. It moves Duran to left, and you or right, and you put O'Neill in left or right, and then Abreu, who figured it out half towards the end of camp, coming off the bench or to be a fill-in guy in the outfield is going to be another nice piece. I agree with you on Wong, and that's part of the reason why I think we're going to see Kyle Teal by the middle of summer. I think adding him to this lineup is the exciting. I mean, I
Yep.
wrote that the future is so bright in Boston that Duran, Devers. I mean, Duran could be a piece that's moved in a couple of years for another arm, but Devers, you got Marcelo Meyer coming up. You got Roman Anthony, which is going to force Rafaela to a corner outfield spot, which allows you to move. I mean, O'Neill will be a free agent. Abreu might be a piece you move, and then Wilkham and Gonzalez is a prospect down there that if he can limit his walks and he's got gas, you could slide him into the rotation. If he doesn't figure it out, he's your closer of the future. I mean,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, this team isn't bad. It's the pitching. And the
Yeah.
pitching, I believe, actually, I wrote about, I'm getting my series preview ready for opening day. And if you look this spring, they're in the top 10 in a lot of pitching categories. I mean,
Yeah.
ERA, whip, strikeouts, they're in the top 10.
Their pitching was strong this spring.
So it's something to think about. I mean, does that translate to the regular season? Who knows? But it's something to give optimism where the Rays are dealing with injuries to start the year. The Red Sox don't have the pitching, but they have the arms that could be something. And
Yeah.
that's why I say it's a 4A, 4B. The Rays are over under right now, 84.5 wins. I'm hammering the under.
Under.
And the Red Sox, I don't know what their win total is, but the other thing, and I went off on Twitter the other day about this. On somebody quote tweeted it, and I replied, and I went off. The MLB came out with their top 10 bullpens entering this season.
Mm-hmm.
The Red Sox weren't on the list, and to me, that is the biggest strength of this team. In years past, it was the biggest question mark. This year, it's the biggest strength. Kenley, again, it is what it is with Kenley. Is he healthy? Is he unhappy? He's going to pitch because he knows if he doesn't pitch, nobody's going to want him.
Didn't get paid. Yep.
Chris Martin, fantastic.
Yep.
Winkowski, I love Winkowski. Bernardino came on last year and they figured something out with him. He looked good
Yep.
last year. Isaiah Campbell has filthy stuff. Joely Rodriguez making the team, I was a little skeptical on. But Justin Slayton is a name to watch out of this bullpen. And if you're a Red Sox fan listening to this, watch that name. And if you haven't heard that name, watch that name. Justin Slayton is a nice arm. And Chase Anderson, bringing him in,
Yeah.
that's going to.
That today or yesterday?
That was Sunday, I believe. He got released, I think,
Okay.
Saturday. He got signed Sunday by the Red Sox. And I mean, that's a guy like say Houck struggles. Say Houck is your number 5 and he struggles going through the second half of the lineup and you bring Chase Anderson in. That can bail you out of jam. That could help
Yep.
out. Yeah, I mean, there is things to like about this team that if they stay healthy, they could finish in the top if everything goes right. But you're asking for, and I said this when I wrote
Law.
that the future is bright. You're asking a lot. Like out of 10 things, like 10 players that if they reach their potential, even 6 of them, you could make the playoffs. You're asking 6 out of 10. You're not going to get that. Baseball's a game where even Ted Williams said it, where you succeed 3 times out of 10, you're considered a good performer.
Correct.
If you're lucky, if you get 3, you're lucky still, and you're probably going to finish maybe 3rd. But I mean, after finishing in 5th the last couple of years, it's been
Something's got to
depressing.
change.
Something has to change, and I think you're going to see something. And the other thing that nobody talks about is I think bringing in Theo, you're going to see something where he's going to realize at a certain point that something's got to change, something's got to happen. But I think they believe in what they've built. I think they believe in Andrew Bailey and Breslow and what they've done in the lineup. If it can all stay healthy, that they can compete, and they will compete. There will be fun games that you watch.
Andrew Bailey had a huge impact on you. You'd mentioned the Giants' starting rotation, but the Giants' bullpen was another huge strength for that team. And I think, given the arms that you mentioned with the Red Sox and Bailey being there, to just build off of that. And then another name that neither one of us really mentioned, but Chris Sale was traded, and we brought back Grisham,
Mm-hmm.
who's been injured. Haven't seen him, so that's a name that can come in. And I think that we've heard an awful lot about Jesus Luzardo being on the trading block down in Miami. And I would not be shocked once Grisham comes back, starts playing, that I don't want to see him trade Meyer. But if this team is staying healthy and hitting the ball and competing, and the Marlins are struggling, it's going to take something to get him. And I think that's a name that if this Red Sox team can get through April and May and compete, and you see Tyler O'Neill staying healthy and Trevor Story staying healthy and this pitching rotation just piecing it together, there could be a move made, because I think that this division is pretty locked up at the top half of the top, but the rest of it, especially looking at the rest of the AL, I do have them finishing last, but if they can piece it together, there's no reason why this team offensively couldn't contend for a wild card. And if you throw in a legit ace, or 1A, 1B with Bello, depending on how he does, it really changes the aspect and the look of this team, especially with the bullpen being the strength that it is. So
Mm-hmm.
the Red Sox
Mm-hmm.
are a very interesting team, but it'll be very interesting to see where they are. And a little bit of that's got to do with our, familiarity with the team and just watching them over the years. So I had the Rays for the same reason you had them finishing last, same reason I do. Their pitching staff is in shambles. They sent down Canero, right, for the third base prospect. He's not even going to start the year there. He was
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be starting third baseman. And it's just not a team that excites me anymore. Aroziena's there for how long? I think he'll be another name bat that's traded early, mid-June, early July. There's just not a lot of pieces there like there have been in the years past, and their pitching staff is going to be hurting this year. So for me, the Rays, like you said, I like Fairbanks, I like Jason Adam. I think they've got some pieces, but I just don't think enough offensively there. And that's not necessarily the organization's fault. I think they were left in quite a situation with their top prospect being disappearing from baseball and probably never to be seen again, which definitely leaves them kind of in a lurch when you've got a guy that you put so much time and effort in, and then he's gone, Wander Franco. So I don't think the Rays will win 80 games this year. I think, like you said, that what would you say, 84 or 82?
84 and a half.
Yeah, no. I've got them at 78 wins and finishing fourth. So who do you have? Well, actually, looking at this, we both have the same team finishing third. So why don't you tell me a little bit of why you've got your team finishing third?
The pitching. I mean, the lineup's going to hit, and they have
Yep.
that park with the right field where the wall's short, and they have three left-handed hitters and three on the bench. And I mean, Judge is going to hit opposite field home runs, so that benefits them. The lineup's going to hit home runs. They're going to hit. They might lead the league in home runs this year with what they have. And I mean, that's Dominguez is going to be back at some point, I believe. I think Brett said that last night.
Yeah.
On top of that, they got Soto now, and they got Verdugo, two left-handed bats that are going to hit home runs. They're going to lead the league in home runs. It's the pitching to me. Cole is a great pitcher, reigning Cy Young Award winner. So, but Cortez hasn't pitched like he did. What was it, 2021? Or was it 21 or 22? He hasn't lived up to it. Rodon hasn't lived up to his contract. Stroman's a ground ball pitcher that he'll be good, but he's up here. It's all in his head. I mean, the fact that I saw that they asked him to be the opening day starter and he said no. How do you not want
which
to be the opening
boggles
day
my mind.
starter
He's done it multiple times for the Cubs, for the Blue Jays. Why?
and it's his hometown team? He's from the area, and he said no. That's all head stuff. Until Cole comes back, they're gonna have Clark Schmidt and Luis Gill. I'm not sold on the rotation. I mean, the lineup's like I said, the lineup's gonna hit, but the rotation, and they don't face the Red Sox until June, July, I believe. And Devers hits Cole well.
Yep.
I debated the conversation. If Cole's out for 2 months, could this team fall?
Yep.
I mean, they're in on Montgomery, so if they get Montgomery, that changes this whole conversation. They are third, and I won't say
Yep.
anything about the Red Sox finishing ahead of them again. But Cole being out 2 months, and they don't have to face the Red Sox and Yankees don't face each other. That could, and the Red Sox stay healthy, that could open the door for third. The Yankees have excitement. The biggest question is with, and this is my biggest thing that I said when this trade happened is Soto going to have a year where he knows he's going to free agency? They don't extend him, and he goes out and does what he does, but the rest of the team behind him struggles. You
Mhm.
know, Judge, you and I have talked about this nonstop. Judge's toe, he said it's going to bother him for the rest of his career. There's an injured list appearance coming for him
Oh,
this
at
year.
least once. At least once.
You're not gonna have that. So you'll have Torres, Soto. No Stanton's gonna get hurt. So it's a lot of question marks for me for this team. It's the same thing as people say about the Red Sox. I mean,
Yeah.
the Yankees just have more pop than the Red Sox do, and you know I think that's why they finish in third. People have them in second, and I think that's or first, and that's mind blowing to me with what's going on with everything on that roster right now.
No, I agree, and I've got them third. And again, like you said, they have plenty of firepower, but at the same time, with that firepower comes some backfire. You're going to see Judge; he's going to be on the DL at least once, or the IL. Stanton as well. I really like Torres, Glaber, and I like Volpe. Um, the biggest thing for me with them is even if everyone stays healthy offensively, you can only outscore your opponents, you know, so many times before your pitching is going to really hurt you. And Cole being out for, 2 months, it's not a guarantee that he comes back and he's back the rest of the year either.
Hmm.
They say it's not needing surgery and that he's going to be okay, just needs to be shut down. But how often do you see a pitcher not look the same in spring training, struggle with his arm strength after pitching 3 innings, 2 innings, and not be able to make his next spring start, come back and be the same guy after being shut down for 2 months of the season?
I think we said that
I
episode
just,
one.
yeah, I just don't see it as likely. He's a great pitcher, and if he does come back, then he'll be himself most likely. But the rest of that rotation without Montgomery is kind of a shit show. Cortez, like you said, hasn't been the same. Schmidt, take it or leave it. I don't think he's anything to write home about. He'll be a 500 pitcher at best. Stroman, I liked Marcus Stroman when he was with the Blue Jays. I loved him when he was with the Cubs. He was just a guy that battled. He was always going to give you those, 95 to 100 pitches a game, get to the sixth, maybe the seventh, but he would always give up. He'd have 1 inning. That last inning that he would pitch would be generally the one let go. And second half last season, he wore out. And to hear that he turned down the opportunity to be the opening day starter, just there's got to be more to the story. We'll never know. But who wouldn't if you like to compete and you're given the opportunity for your home club to take the ball, why say no? I
Exactly.
don't think it was early enough that they could have switched his spring schedule to get him on track for that. I don't think it has anything to do with that. It's all in his head. And if it's still like it was the back half of last year, he's not the same pitcher he was in the first half for the Cubs, where he was lights out, pretty dominant with a sub 3 ERA. I
He was the Cy
I would,
Young favorite in the
yeah,
first half.
yep.
I mean,
And then he just crumbled, which he's probably a bigger reason. Well, can't say he's the biggest reason why the Cubs missed the playoffs last year because he held it together for them in the first half, but definitely down that stretch, he was the difference between them making the playoffs and not.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it'll be very interesting to see which pitcher the Yankees get. Now, if he comes out and can pitch like he did the first half and can do that all year, then yeah, this team's got the power to really put it through, especially if they get Montgomery. There's a lot of talent there, and wherever we have now, third, you throw Montgomery, Cole coming back healthy, and then Stroman actually being Stroman of the first half, they could be where other people are projecting them. I just don't see it right now.
They're competing with Toronto. I mean, at that point, which
100%. It leads right into who you've got second.
yep, I got the Blue Jays, and I mean, it's pretty simple. The pitching, the fact of Barrios has taken the one, and that's because Kevin Gausman wasn't healthy to start spring. He made his first start today, and the Blue Jays Twitter put it right out. He looked like Cy Young Gausman, and
Yep.
he's going to be your number 5 to start the year. The one name in this starting rotation is Bowden Francis, and I wrote about it the other day, and they gave him the call to join the rotation. He was a lot of fun to watch this spring, and he could make some serious noise as a young kid. They got him in a trade with Milwaukee in 21. I don't know what the trade was for. The bullpen's a little question mark, but they're not going to have Jordan Romano, who's their closer, to start the year. He's going to be on the injured list. They're losing Eric Swanson.
Yeah.
Alek Manoah is a tough fall from grace. I mean, we all thought he was going to be a Cy Young candidate last year. I had it that was one of my first articles here, was that he was a Cy Young candidate to watch out for, and it fell apart. The fact that you have Kevin Biggio hitting in the 9 spot to me is fantastic. I mean, he got called up. He was in the 6 hole, and he was hot streak or forget it. And he hitting in the 9 hole is a nice spot for him. IKF is a question mark. What are you going to get from him? The biggest addition this offseason for me, the biggest, was adding Justin Turner. I wanted him back in the Red Sox, but adding him, and they're going to put him in the 4 hole, and he can play third if IKF struggles. It's just that bat and that lineup and that presence in that clubhouse is going to lead this team. I'll give the tease right now because I think we said we were going to talk about playoffs next week, and what we had. The Blue Jays are making the playoffs. I mean, adding Turner there, he's going to be back in the postseason. And we talked about it, I believe, the first podcast of they added Joey Votto. He's back home, and right now he's not expected to make the roster. Will that change? Who knows? An injury happens here or there. IKF struggles, and he goes to the bench, and then they say Turner's going to third, and Votto's going to be DH. I love that idea. I mean, I don't love the idea of
Vogelbach making the team over Votto, which to me, I think it could be very similar. And I don't mean to cut you off. I think it could be very similar with Votto, similar to kind of what the Mets are doing with Martinez. Let him, if you see Votto pass through and go to AAA, there's some sort of promise there of, hey, look, go down there, get X amount of at bats, and we'll bring you up. If you see him released or optioned, whatever, or you're released or free to find somewhere else, then it's done. But I don't see Vogelbach's bat being any better than Joey Votto's at this current time. So I see him eventually making appearance, and like you said, him and Turner as clubhouse guys for those young guys that are trying to get through some of the hurdles they've had. That team can make some noise.
I'll actually sneak this one in there. I got 2 things. Number 1, if Votto, whatever game he appears in the Blue Jays, if he stays there, that game, bet him to hit a home run. Hometown. It's just, I've said it before and I'll say it again. How can you not be romantic about baseball? Home game for him in his home country, hitting a home run. That's number 1. Number 2, I mentioned it with the Mariners and Julio Rodriguez and being an MVP and all that. My biggest guy that I'm all aboard in the top 3 for MVP this year, Bo Bichette. Everybody talks about Vlad Guerrero Jr. being the big name in that lineup, and he is. He's got the pop. But Bo Bichette has proven year in and year out that he is a bat to reckon with in that lineup. Boguchet is one of my top MVP for the American League this year, and I think that's the
Yeah.
biggest reason. Him alone in the season he's going to have is the reason the Blue Jays finished second, and he's going to benefit, I think, more so than anybody from Justin Turner being in that lineup and in that clubhouse.
Yeah. No, I've got the Blue Jays second as well. I think they've got all the talent offensively. They stay healthy. If Vladdy can come back and have a more consistent year, I agree with you with Bichette. I think that he is a sleeper candidate for the MVP, which again we'll get into a little bit more next week. But if Gosman can come back, and Jesus, even if Manoah can be 2/3 as good as he was that first rookie year and find a happy medium and be a good number 3, 4, and be serviceable and not a fucking joke compared to last year, that team can do a lot better. Romano being injured definitely hurts, but I do think they've got enough pieces to figure it out. Springer's another guy out in the outfield that I love. I just wish he could stay healthy, and if he stays healthy, that's a good team. They've got Varsho as well. And I really am rooting for Votto to make an appearance and be with this club and kind of make some noise and be that veteran presence. I was reading something the other day about John Olerud, and not to compare them at all. They're both first basemen and both left-handed, but they both were professional hitters. And it would be really cool to see Votto come up and be, with Turner, with these young kids and make some noise. And it'd be nice to see Votto make an appearance in the postseason and, play long into October and maybe be his final year. But Blue Jays are going to be an exciting team. I think by now everyone that's listening understands where we both are with the top team. So tell me a little bit why you like the Orioles to win the East.
Just everything about them. I mean, the addition of Corbin Burns to be an ace. What was the one thing that team didn't have last year they needed?
An ace.
Was an ace. And they
didn't give shit. They didn't give shit up to get him.
Nope. And I said this to Jamie.
What's his contract? Is it a 1 year?
I believe he's a free agent after this year.
But anyone could have had him for what they gave up. Really, another team may have had to give up more pieces, but anyone could have had him for the price that the Orioles paid. They didn't have to give up any of their top prospects, in my opinion, to get Burns. And I think Burns may have had more to do with where he went than the Brewers, in my opinion, because he wanted to go and compete. He's an ace. I was shocked when that trade, because I think we had talked a lot about Burns and where he'd go and what it would take to get him, and I don't think we even finished. I don't think it was 24 hours before he was traded to the Orioles, and I think someone said that's the team that needed him, and sure as shit they go. And when I saw the return, I was just baffled.
Well, I even said this, and Jamie brought it up today in our group chat, that Montgomery is another name to watch to go there. They've snuck in that, the one thing nobody's talking about with this team, the one thing is they're going to get John Means back this year.
Yeah. Yep.
Right now he had TJ, right?
I think so. He was a good one in 2022.
Had a no-hitter. I think hit the Mariners.
Yeah. Definitely can pitch. And I believe he's left-handed too. So that
he is. Yep. That's the left-handed arm they're missing. Right now it's Cole Irvin in there as the only lefty.
And he's serviceable though. I mean, with that team, he's serviceable.
Personally, you take out Tyler Wells out of that rotation. You have Corbin Burns, Grayson Rodriguez, Dean Kramer, Cole Irvin, and you add John Means in there. That's a pretty good rotation. And then we haven't gotten there yet, but the lineup. I mean, what they can do offensively, and that's without their top prospect, which is the biggest head scratcher, is that he's not making the team out of camp. They sent Jackson Holiday to AAA. That was a head scratcher to me. I mean, I thought he was going to make the team right out of camp, but hey, I get it. Maybe it's a Chris Bryant situation where you let him go down the minors and let him play X number of games and you get an extra year of service time out of him. I mean, I wouldn't put it past it. It's a brilliant idea if that's the case, because then you slide.
What the hell? He's not going to make or break your year, so why not keep the service year?
Exactly. I
Sucks
mean,
for
they're going.
him and sucks for the fans, but
This team may very well, with an ace like Corbin Burns, win over 100 games.
I've got them at 96, and I debated them being.
It's
Can
right
they
there.
be
It's
the
right there.
American League version of the Braves or the Dodgers, for that matter? The one question I have when looking at them, because we both agree, and I mean Henderson is slated to start at short. Why not
Hmm.
have him play? Why not have him play third and put Mateo at short instead of Roman Urias at third and Henderson at short?
I think that's what you're going to see. But you also
I
have
hope so.
Westberg who could play second, and that
Yeah,
opens things up too. I mean, there's options. And right
Westbrook
now,
can play third too, can he?
I might be able to. I don't actually remember if he's played there or not in the minors.
I think
But
Henderson. I know Henderson can play third, and
Henderson's going to be
then
the third baseman. Holiday will go to short probably when he comes up.
when he comes
And
up,
then
yeah,
in second base, you put Westberg.
yeah,
Yeah, and that's your
they're
defense. So I think
they're
I don't know
fucking deep
why you're messing with it right now, but they
because
have
they've
in
got
the outfield
Cowser,
depth they have.
Colton Cowser's, their fourth outfielder.
Hmm.
I mean, they've got Nevin, but they've got a team that's got so much depth where it kind of reminds me of the Rays back when they were really good with that pitching staff, where you could take a guy that was starting at third base and all of a sudden now he's out in right field. You got a guy that's playing first, now he's in left. They've got Mateo, Tyler Nevin, both of them can play infield and outfield. And then you've got Colton Cowser.
Yeah, enjoy
It's
Tyler
just
Nevin.
deep. Yeah, well, they can have him.
Well, not even talking about Heston Kurdshed, who they
Yeah,
put down in AAA, and McKenna. McKenna's all right. I mean, we saw him lose that ball in the lights at Fenway to start the year last year.
yeah,
But Heston, nobody talks about him. He could be another piece. And they, again, another name nobody talks about, and I'm still mad at him because I loved him in college, is Judd Fabian. Drafted by the Red
yep,
Sox. He said no, went back to college and got drafted by the Orioles. And so he's there too. He's another name to watch that could do something. Another name in the outfield as a prospect, Enrique Bradfield Jr. I think
yeah.
one of those two, Fabian or Bradfield, could be moved for another starter at some point. I mean, the offensive depth they have is wild, and the pitching, they could do better at pitching depth. I mean, Cade Povich in the minors is another name to watch this year, but that's the one thing they're missing is pitching prospects.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they have the stuff to go do it if they wanted to.
That's what I was just thinking when you're talking about all these names. If you don't touch, obviously Holiday's not going anywhere. Westberg, Henderson aren't going anywhere. Colzer's not going anywhere. They they can friggin' do anything they want. That's scary because it's very similar to like you were mentioned about the Tigers being set up for years to come. This Orioles team is going to be nasty for a long time, and if you throw, I mean, the Orioles don't normally pay for pitching in free agency, but if they go out and make a deep run into the playoffs, I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that if I'm Burns and I want to go to a contender, why leave unless you're going to the Braves or Philadelphia? Why? Why leave Baltimore? Even if it
And
is for less money.
they're changing things in Baltimore. Everything
Yeah.
changes come
Well,
opening day,
the owner
and they're
just
going to
passed
spend.
too. The
Yep.
owner just passed, so
Hmm.
that's another narrative. I think Jamie put it up in the group chat that they're going all in this year to win it in memory. Um, I
And the money's going to
I'm
talk.
excited to watch this team. Oh yeah, I'm actually going to opening day for the Red Sox, and my 10-year-old daughter. I told her, I said, well, I'll buy you either a jersey or a jersey, whatever you want. And she asked who they're playing. And she's a catcher herself in softball, and she is a big Adley fan. So her gut reaction was, well, we're going to see the Red Sox. I'll get a Devers jersey. She goes, well, who are they playing? I said, well, they're playing Baltimore. And you can instantly see her gears turning. And she knew exactly what she wanted. And she's like, well, is it okay if I wore a different team there, Dad, if we're going? I'm like, you can do whatever you want. And I think that's one of the coolest things for baseball is this young team. And it's a
Hmm.
shame that a lot of people don't get to watch them play as often unless they buy the MLB package. It's just they're going to be so much fun to watch this year, and I hope they're broadcast an awful lot on ESPN, Fox, whatever you can do to show this young team and to give those fans of, the Oakland A's, the White Sox, give them hope that, yeah, you can stink for a real long time, but if you do it right, you can be good for a really, really long time too. And that's what this Oriole team is going to be. I've got them at 96 and 66. And if you told me they end up winning 104 games, I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah.
Especially if they add another starter. I mean, can you imagine if they went to the Miami Marlins and dished out a couple of guys and took Luzardo?
Yeah.
And you put him after Burns.
With Means at 3. Oof.
Fuck. It's going to be very interesting to see because they're going to be a team at the deadline, as long as people stay healthy, that they'll be like, oh, don't really need to do anything. But they also have log jams in the minors. So they might have to do something just to do something. And they may go after a guy like Luzardo because he's got control. And if you do that, and I'm Burns will never leave. He may even buy, a couple houses in Baltimore and just stay put. They're going to be a fun team to watch. And I'm really excited to see them play. And I think, next week on the next week's pod, when we get into the playoffs, we get into MVP, Cy Young's Rookie of the Year, I think you'll hear an awful lot more about some of these top teams we discussed. And I don't think it would be far cry for me to say that we'll be talking a little bit more about the Orioles next week.
Yeah, absolutely not. Expect some award conversation for all of them. Even Brandon Hyde, their manager.
Yep. So with that said, just a little recap. The AL East, Orioles finishing first, Blue Jays second. We both had the Yankees finishing third. And then I had the Rays in fourth. You had the Red Sox. And then you had the Rays finishing last. I had the Red Sox. In the Central, we both had the Detroit Tigers winning. You had the Twins as runner-up. I had the Guardians. Then you had the Royals third. I had the Twins. You had the Guardians fourth. I had the Kansas City Royals fourth. And then we both had the White Sox finishing dead last. The AL West, we both were even across the board. The M's finishing first. The Astros. Then the Rangers, Angels, and A's. So it's going to be a very exciting year. Tonight's Monday night. Opening day is Thursday. Really excited for next week's pod to get into the awards, but even more excited to talk about, everything that's happened for the first 4 days of the season and kind of what shocks us. Who knows? I wouldn't be too shocked if Montgomery signs in the next, 48 hours, and then see if any other surprising news happens or if it waits to the middle of the year. But very excited for the season to start. Can't wait to watch some baseball that counts and see a little bit more what happens with Ohtani out there too. I won't make any bets on it. So I want to thank you, CJ, for joining me again tonight. Don't forget, like, subscribe, follow us on the Facebook page of Inside the Diamonds and Inside Baseball. And we'll be looking forward to you all catching up with us next week when we break down the playoffs, the awards, and talk about opening weekend. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Baseball's back. Let's go.